What's going on? And welcome everybody to the TEPS podcast, or the Everything Paranormal Show for your old school fans. And guys, welcome. We're going to have a great show tonight. We're joined by Tammy Gyarmathy. She has got a YouTube channel. She's been experiencing stuff. We're going to get to know her, and you guys hopefully are going to fall in love with her. We're going to talk with her, and we've got a couple other great subjects we're going to be discussing and getting her reaction on, because I like to bring people on, and we're going to cover some articles out of Paranormal Underground magazine. Of course, for those of you that don't know, we are sponsored by Paranormal Underground magazine. Go to paranormalunderground.net, tell them Josh sent you, or TEPS, whatever you want to say. Just say, I tell them, just tell them I sent you. You're going to get like a free year for sure. That will come fully illustrated, digital copies to your email. It's great. Full magazine. I love them. They got all the paranormal subjects that you can think of. But we're going to actually react to a couple subjects. One of them is about reality being a simulation, and also a psychic predicts alien contacts by 2028. So we're going to get into some of that. It'll be pretty fun. But first, folks, let's give a round of applause at home for Tammy Gyarmathy. Tammy, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, other than I was running a little bit behind. So for those of you that noticed, we didn't start right at 9, so that was my fault, guys. I was skating in at the last minute. I had a meeting that went over. So,
It happens.
oh yeah. So Tammy, why don't you tell folks out there a little bit about yourself, and you've been experiencing some paranormal. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am what I would consider a sensitive. I've seen spirits since I was 5. Um, at the age of 12, I went through a pretty traumatic experience, and I think that is when something attached itself to me. At that point, things started happening in the house that I was living in, moving on their own, doors closing by themselves, just weird things. And those things were escalating. We contacted a priest. They blessed the house. I mean, nothing we did helped. Um, and then it kind of just from there, it really just every house I lived in was the same type of activity. And I thought at that point in my life that maybe it was just because I'm sensitive and I drew spirits in like around me. So I didn't really realize what was going on until probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
Just kind of piecing things together. Okay, every house, same type of stuff. And then was it 2000? Gosh, I want to say about 2018, 2000. Yeah, about 2018, I put cameras up in my house, and we were capturing things moving on their own and stuff like that. We captured the shadow figure, like kind of peeking out and then going back in, um, just all kinds of things. And I ended up moving to Texas, and I was thinking, please, Lord, just like let this thing go away. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Because every time we would like, I would have priests bless the house. I've had demonologists. I've had other paranormal investigators. I mean, you name it, I've tried it. And every time that we tried to remedy the situation, it just made things worse.
Right.
So I moved to Texas, and my friend Tara picked my mom and I up from the airport, and we got to our house, and I'm walking through the front door, and I'm like, oh, this is the office. And then like I look up at the stairs and I see this big shadow figure, and I was like, oh my God. Tara looked and she saw it too, and I was just like, crap. Like
Right.
I just can't get away from this. And I didn't want to put cameras up or anything because I just didn't want to give it that attention or that energy. Um,
Right.
but things were going crazy. Things were happening from the very beginning. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to capture this, like, so other people can see.
Right.
So I did end up putting cameras back in the house probably about 5 to 6 months after I moved in. Um, and I think within the first week, like the same kind of figure appeared in like the kitchen area that appeared in the house in California. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is crazy. So my mom and I kind of sat down and kind of did like a timetable of all these things that occurred. And we're like, okay, so obviously this is the same thing.
Right.
Um, And so I trace it back to what happened to me when I was 12, because that's when it all started. Um, I talked to an exorcist. We did minor rites of exorcism. Things were moving in the bedroom. Doors were slamming shut. I did not like it.
Now, was
And
this
then
when you were 12, or is this where you're talking recently?
this was just what, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh,
It's
okay, okay,
probably about a year and a half ago. Um, so it's always just been there. I can go to a grocery store and things will fly off shelves in front of me. It's insane. So this whole thing is kind of what got me into the paranormal, because I wanted to help people that were dealing with the same things that I was.
right.
Because people don't believe other people, or mock them or whatnot, and I didn't want people to feel like they were alone.
Oh yeah, and
So
in the world of paranormal, it's going to be tough because you're always going to have skeptics. You're always going to have people. You're going to have your disbelievers. But let's go back to the beginning. Um, and so, what was it like when you said 12?
Mhm.
So when did you first realize that you were experiencing something that was not normal?
It was when I was 12. So like I said, I saw spirits since I was 5, but it wasn't always like, it mostly wasn't in my home. It would be like somebody standing on the corner and they'd be gone, or stuff like that. So I didn't deal with like things moving around by themselves until I was 12. So, we would be home and something would move, or the cat would. So back in the day, we had the bigger TVs, and my cat
Right,
liked to sleep on top of it. And we were in the family room watching TV, and she literally like scoots off the TV, but like levitated and then
right.
dropped down. So it's just stuff like that. My mom and I would be home by ourselves. We'd hear a door slam shut,
It's
and
like an
maybe like a
unnatural
gust.
dismount.
Yeah, all the time. There was
Right.
like weird oils that would drip from the wall, and it was just always crazy things. And my mom was a believer because, like, I get the sensitivity from her side of the family.
Now,
So,
how did she explain it to you though? How did she try to explain to you as a 12, or did she already start explaining stuff to you before 12?
well, we would talk about stuff like that with my grandma and my mom. Like, my grandma saw spirits too, and she would tell me stories about that. So that kind of thing kind of had already been talked about. But obviously more so when started things started happening to our family and in the house. And I oddly enough, like, I was never, can't say I was never scared of it, but I was always like, kind of intrigued by it. Obviously when things were happening, and a lot of things would happen in my bedroom, that scared me. I'm 12 years old.
Right.
I remember one day things were just crazy, and so I was like, I'm calling the priest. So I called the priest like a church myself, and I was like, these are things that are happening, like, what can I do? And the priest was like, oh, just name it. Just give it a name and tell it to stop. I'm just like, okay. That obviously didn't work. Um, so then we eventually had a priest come in and bless the house. That didn't work. So it was just always something happening. And it was like just noises or things moving. And I remember one time I opened the medicine cabinet, and I think it was eye drops or something, like, came out, and like the cat like levitated and then dropped down. So it was always just
Right.
stuff like that happening constantly, messing with the cats. The cat would be in the room and get spooked. Their tail would fluff out huge, and hair sticking up on the back. Like, just, it was always stuff like that.
Right. Now I do want to get into a little bit of that as well. Let me take a quick moment and let's just say hi to everybody real quick, because I don't know if you can see the stream, but we got Alexander Blackburn said hello. Uh,
Hi.
so Kat, of course, hey Kat. Wayne Monroe said hello. Chris T said
Hi,
my
Chris.
girl, hey Tammy. And Terry Lynn Morris came in there. Terry Lynn, what's up, girl? That's no Terry Lynn. That's beyond the veil. So it's good to see her in there. I'm glad to see you pop in. But yeah, so I just want to take a moment. I always try to acknowledge everybody in chat when I can.
Oh, absolutely.
Christian, hey Christian, Christian, my son. So, but yeah, the
I
all right. So getting back to like that sort of childhood. So what I mean, how did your mom sort of explain it to you? Because like this sounds like these were things that were regularly happening. I mean, what was the explanations that were given to you back then?
She, basically just said that there's a haunting, there's a spirit in the house. I don't remember like the sit down conversations per se from way back then. But I remember like I had talked to her about like seeing the spirits and stuff like that, and just kind of explained that kind of ran on my mom's side of the family. Like all my grandma had 9 sisters,
Right.
so all of the females, like cousins, everybody, like they've all had some sort of gift in their life. Um, so it was something that it was just always going to be there,
Okay.
and I kind of embraced it. By the time I was 16, I was like trying to do EVPs, like not even
Right.
knowing what the hell I was doing, but trying to, because I didn't want to be
So
scared of it anymore.
when they were like, so they were basically like they were suggesting different things, and you said there was a lot of things that sound like even as into your adulthood that weren't working. Well, why do you think that things weren't working? Like when you know what I mean, like methods to help either prevent, block, separate. What do you think was holding those things back? Did you ever figure that out?
I just feel like this thing has a stronghold. It's definitely something darker. It attached to me through something absolutely horrible that happened to me. And when I was speaking more recently with the exorcist, like kind of giving him a breakdown of, everything that's gone on in my life and family history and stuff, he's just like, this thing has a really strong hold on you. And he thinks that it might possibly be two things, because he thinks there's also like a generational curse. My great grandma on my mom's side of the family, she dabbled in some really dark things. She was not a very good person. My great great grandma, I should say. So I don't know if things kind of stem from there as well.
Right.
But yeah, everything I've done, everything, I've never been a sage person. I don't think that that's always a good idea, especially when you don't know what you're dealing with. But like, I mean, everything from saging the house to, you know, a minor rise of exorcism, nothing has worked. Like everything has made it worse. So it's
Right.
hard. Like, what's the next step? What do I do? Like, that's the frustrating part of it. And people are like, how have you done this for so long? Because it's been what, 31 years, 32 years. And it's like, after that long, like it kind of becomes a normal part of your life, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
I don't know what normal is. I don't remember that because I've experienced this stuff since I was a child.
Right. And you just kind of normalize other people. It might scare them, and you've kind of, I'm sure that the edges come off. Um, but I'm sure there's probably still moments. Obviously, it sounds to me like you're still wanting to, you know, to get rid of this thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, it causes things to go wrong in my life. Like I I've always had like weird health stuff that like the doctor could never figure out. Blood work's always normal, this, that, and the other. Um, and it's always just been something. And I always feel like there's like a black cloud above me. I can't say that there's not things in my life I am grateful for because I am. I have an amazing family, but I feel like this thing has just kind of held me back in ways.
Right.
And I want it gone. I don't want to have to live like this. I mean, does it still scare me sometimes? Yeah. I mean, it's held me down in my bed. It's choked me. I have a picture that has like weird hand mark on my neck. It's physically attacked my mom, my sister. Like I don't like those things happening. And they're still happening to this day. So I want it gone. I want to know what normal is.
Right. And it is rare. Like I mean, I've been involved in paranormal for 30 years, and it is rare to get cases that can't be controlled. There's generally in most paranormal, when there's situations and spirits, there's certain things that tend to always work, like always work,
Hmm.
no matter what. They always tend to work. That's just things that's been proven over thousands of years or through certain certain things that are passed on. So when you have a situation where something there's some methods aren't working and whatever, it's always tough. There is some things I think out there. I'm gonna, you know, for sure. I'll probably send you like I'll try to hook you up with somebody that might be able to help you out even more. Also,
Mhm.
that I got a friend that's very knowledgeable on some things that spiritually on a deep level that has some good stuff and also knows about spells and curses and stuff.
Mhm.
So, but I'll connect you up with him, you know, too as well. But
Perfect.
so so basically at some point you decided, all right, I'm gonna start filming this stuff and kind of sharing it and trying to take it to the people. Um, let's see, what did Alexander say? Alexander says, I will say you are one strong woman to deal with something of this magnitude and still stay calm. Most people wouldn't.
Thank you.
So I would imagine just kind of saying, like, even if she's saying that, I imagine now you're probably a lot more sort of resolved. Like you said, you've kind of normalized it, but I'm sure there was many other times you weren't so calm in your
Oh
past.
yeah, no, I mean, there's times recently that I was freaked out. I remember I just bought a house recently, but the house that I was in previously, um one night I heard this god awful, just like loud, like I can't even explain it, sound. And it sounded like big heavy furniture was being dragged above me. And so my camera upstairs caught the sound, but it was terrifying, and I was just like, "What do I do? What do I do? I don't have anywhere to go. Like, I have to stay here." And it's just like when certain things happen still, it is very scary. Um, like my sisters, because we all lived together, and when we first moved out to Texas, and she was in her bed upstairs, and she kept seeing this thing, like this big shadow figure kind of peeping in and out of the room, and she starts praying, and she's, God, please let this thing go away, please let this thing go away. And it like slams down on the foot of the bed, and then it climbs in on top of her and is holding her down, and I'm hearing her screaming from the
Hmm.
other side of the house, and I'm just like, what the hell, and so things like that is very unsettling. Like things moving on their own, like that's kind of cool, right? That's kind of the stuff that we want to see as paranormal investigators. But when you're physically attacked, like that's a whole different level of stuff. So it's, I don't know, dealing with that in my family, like dealing me, I'm like whatever, but when my family gets hurt, like that's just, I can't, that's not okay with me at all.
And so have you been running like EVPs and like experiments and stuff? I mean, because you were mentioned paranormal investigation. Are you running experiments to try to capture any voices or communications?
Oh yeah, we've had my friend Tara and I mean, we've investigated the houses and like, numerous times, and we've gotten so many EVPs and so many different responses. Um, Even said a name a couple of times, and just like crazy creepy voices. Like my cameras even pick up creepy voices. I don't know if
Right.
you see a couple of the videos on Facebook, but um it's never like a straight answer. We do the Estes method, because we tend to get more through that than anything.
It's a good
And
it's a good cross confirmation method.
yeah, definitely, because we're recording it, and so you can hear these other voices talking. We get a lot of Arabic, um, even in like our EVPs, which I find really interesting too.
Hmm.
It's just we've gotten a lot of stuff. Enough, and I've gone live and people have experienced it for themselves, because you know how people are in the paranormal. Oh, it's fake, blah 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 blah. Like, no, people have experienced it. I mean, anybody that's come to my home have experienced it.
Right.
So,
And so what's your I mean, so what's the next step for you like on this? Like what are you hoping to accomplish here soon with this situation?
I would love to get somebody in here that I can actually get rid of it. And I'm not saying that in a bad way to the people that have helped me in the past, because I know that they did everything that they could. But maybe it's just a different method that we need to do. Um, I don't know, we get a lot of Arabic, and I find that kind of interesting. And so maybe different people of different religious backgrounds. I don't know. They There's not a whole lot more. I don't think at this point, because of every type of person that I've had try to come help. But I'm going to keep continuing to try to get rid of it, of course.
Okay.
Um, I don't
Yeah,
know
and I
who or
think you
what.
should, and I definitely think you should share, and you should still try to record what you can and share experiences along the way. I think that just helps, and it just also can catalog even more evidence for you too. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely, definitely. I mean, I keep all my videos. I have a ton of EVPs and all of that, and I've saved a lot of my lives, so I have all that documented as well. Um,
and where can people find, just to let people know that maybe aren't familiar with you that watch this, where can they find you? Like, where all can they find your stuff at?
I do have a TikTok. I mostly just like reshare videos at this point. I'm not really posting too much to it, but there's a lot of videos on it. And that is, I think it's the Haunted 136.
The
I think.
Haunted 136.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a YouTube, but I don't use it really. So that's probably the best place to see like the evidence and footage.
Okay. Is that the same as, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think I subscribed to your YouTube, but I'm trying to remember if is that the same one,
The
because I used one of your links.
YouTube. I don't even remember. I think there's the haunted. The is it the haunt? I think it's just the haunted one.
Yeah, I think the
Uh,
haunted one. I think that's what it
yeah, I think that's what it is. Like I said, I haven't used it in forever, so I don't
is.
really remember.
Okay. So basically the best way is going to be TikTok, and you said
The
the
haunted
haunted
136.
136.
Mhm.
All right, awesome. Well, I wish you luck on that. We're gonna move forward now into another segment, and that's crazy. Like I said, as a paranormal investigator, I'll be honest with you, like I'm more than happy to connect you with somebody that may be able to help you out. Me
Mhm.
personally, like I would be the kind of person, like if I could investigate and do all that stuff, I would be. But is it something that might be over my head? Probably. I'm willing enough. I'm man enough to admit when it's out of my element, and something like that to me is going to be on a higher level. That's going to be need to be dealt with people that are more familiar in classic demonology and stuff. Because when you're talking about a battle with evil spirits, it's I do know a lot about it. It's just a rare case,
Right.
so taking on things like that, like people shouldn't take those on if they don't believe that they can truly help you, because they can just make things worse.
Exactly. And I
So
think so many
right,
people reach out to investigate, and they just want the thrill of it. They don't want to help me.
right,
So it's like, no, I
exactly,
don't want you in my house. And honestly, I don't trust very many people in the paranormal community. So, I don't I don't know, that's just not the route I would ever go unless it's somebody that I truly trust. But it's hard because people these days really just want to put stuff on their YouTube channels, and
right.
a lot of people aren't really willing to help, and a lot of people in the paranormal community don't even believe in demons. So,
Well, and that's the problem.
yeah.
Again, there's a majority of the YouTube paranormal community are self-serving. They want to have clicks and views. So they're either going to use your situation for those clicks and views, or they just believe in surface level stuff because they're just doing things. A lot of them are faking it half the time, anyways.
Yeah, they've never
So
really experienced a real haunting.
right. So I
Anyway,
mean,
so
like you're better off not dealing with most of those people, anyways.
yeah.
But I also put on here, Chris T did put your TikTok in the comments, so I put that up on the screen for a
Thank
second.
you,
So if
Chris.
anybody needs to see what it looks like, that's how it's spelled, and that's where you can find Tammy. So, all right, moving on. We are going to move into some fun talk. Maybe this will help give your mind a chance to flex out on some other interesting things. So, we're going to turn to a headline from the Paranormal Underground magazine. Former NASA scientist seeks proof that reality is a simulation. So, could our reality be a simulated one? This intriguing question, popularized by the 1990 film The Matrix, is now being investigated by former NASA physicist Thomas Campbell. Campbell's experiments aim to uncover whether our world is a computer generated simulation, according to Yahoo.com. Campbell, who detailed his experiments in 2017, has inspired scientists at Cal Poly to test his hypothesis. His nonprofit, the Center for the Unification of Science and Consciousness, funds these efforts, expecting strong scientific evidence that we live in a computer simulated virtual reality. Unquote. One of Campbell's key experiments involves the double slit experiment, which traditionally demonstrates how light and matter exhibit both wave and particular characteristics. He believes that without an observer, quote, the actual recorded information never existed in the first place, unquote, supporting his idea that the universe is, quote, participatory. Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom also explored his theory in his 2003 paper, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? Bostrom's concept involves layers of simulations, while Campbell's just posits that consciousness is fundamental to reality. If successful, Campbell's experiments could radically alter our understanding of reality, potentially revealing deep connections between consciousness and the cosmos. And as Campbell states, they could challenge the conventional understanding of reality. So that's a lot. That's a lot to take in from the small article. But I thought it'd be interesting. Again, remember, if you guys want to see the full Paranormal Underground magazine and all the amazing articles that talk about ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot and demons and I don't know, all kinds of stuff, guys, go Paranormal Underground magazine. But anyways, guys, so I think it's interesting. I mean, I think the concept of Matrix, and I gotta say, and I try not to get into politics on this channel.
Mhm.
But I gotta say, sometimes with the craziness that's going on in the world, and I'm just speaking generically, it almost feels like how could it not be a simulation at this point? I
Mhm.
mean, it is so ridiculous.
It feels like we're just playing out a movie. That's what life feels like right now. And it's
Yeah,
so crazy. It's like a circus. And I don't even know. I would not be surprised at this point if that was not the reality of things.
I know it is interesting, and like I guess for me, when I think about this subject, now, you know, I'm not an expert on like physics and stuff like that, but in quantum physics and stuff, but I got to just say, and again, with all this, all my years of investigations and stuff like that, it's like there is thoughts of like, well, maybe when we get EVPs, maybe that's voices from another dimension, like, or like a parallel universe.
Mhm.
There is those thoughts. As far as like a Matrix though type of thing, I mean, God, that's some deep thought. And it almost does feel like that at times. And what if we are hearing in like ghosts, things like that? What if some of these ghosts and stuff like that, I mean, for all you know, Tammy, maybe your situation is like some corrupted, malware.
Yeah,
you
I wouldn't
know?
be surprised.
Right. And it's like you're experiencing like your character, your avatar in this matrix, you're experiencing some kind of malware attack, and it's like this 30-year attack, and you just can't seem to clean your windows or something. You know? I
Should I
mean,
do
I
a
don't
hard
know.
reboot? I mean, I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, I guess that could explain like deja vu things too, right? Like
Possibly.
I
Have you
know.
ever entertained that thought of like, do you ever really get into like those ideas of like, hey, parallel universes, extra dimensions, or, a matrix?
I've had conversations about the whole dimension thing, but that's not something I've done like a deep dive in. I've always been like, okay, well, maybe that could be it, but nothing like much further than that.
Fair
But
enough.
I do think, I mean, I've also had conversations because I know aliens are going to come up in this, but like, are aliens, demons the same thing? Like that's something that I've kind of thought about too. So
Interesting. Now we are going to get into a little bit of an alien story next segment. So um, I don't know. I think that it, like you said earlier, there's almost like this movie script sometimes. Life has gotten so upside down on things. And again, I'm trying to avoid specifics, but I mean, we had just so many crazy things happen in the world of politics. We had an assassination attempt. And it was almost as if like those things were swept under a rug and just moved into these other crazy things that happened. And it's just like up is down, down is up.
yeah, good is bad and bad is good. Like I don't know. I don't even
Yeah,
know what to say about any of it anymore. It's just kind of crazy to me. Like
yeah,
there certain people are playing at their own rules and nothing's how it used to be at
no.
all.
And now, did you ever see did you see the movie The Matrix?
Yes, I did. My
Okay,
dad actually did the temporary fence work for that movie.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
Um, I bring that up because if you remember, there was a character in there, Joe Pantoliano's character. He was the one that wanted to go back into the Matrix, right?
Hmm.
So, spoiler alert! I'm going to spoil an old movie. Now it's considered an old movie. It's crazy, but he wanted to go back in the Matrix, and he sort of threw the crew under the bus, right?
Hmm.
So he could get back in the Matrix. And sometimes I feel like that's how there's a lot of people it almost similar. Like there's a lot of his characters, like people that instead of being woke up from the Matrix, they they sense it and they all like don't want to be woke up. They're like, no, 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 leave me alone. I like the Matrix. I'm happy. I don't want to see beyond this reality.
Yeah.
And
But
it
it's almost
really
like brainwashing at the same
yeah, and
time.
it really feels like that because there's some people, it's like you try to have like a rational conversation. You're just
Hmm.
like, hey, this candidate is a certain way, this candidate is a certain way. Let's compare. And they're like, no, like your candidate is freaking, insane or whatever. Like, everybody just freaks out. There's like
Yeah.
this cognitive dissonance, and they just don't want to be woke up from the matrix in a way. That's what it reminds
Yes,
me of.
and definitely, or you can put proof in someone's face and be like, "This is what's happening. Look at this," and they don't want to see it. They're like
Right.
totally blinded to the truth, which
Or
is
they just use some other thing to try to just
yeah,
pull them to some kind of like, well, there's this. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really a thing. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And
exactly.
like, so, but that's what it reminds. So when I see an article like this, that's what I think about our world, and it's like, yeah, there's this possibility like that we're, when you really break down, they say that, we're really, there's nothing solid. Technically, even the most hardened of things, there's still space in between atoms.
Hmm.
Like, so it makes you wonder if we could be all just bits of data and programming in a different kind of way, broken down in a way.
Right.
um Kat says no logical conversations at all.
No.
It's like the world is going backwards. Exactly. And again, I'm still trying to talk generic because again, I think there's always a time and place for politics, but we're just in such a crazy world that no matter what side you're on, nobody can look at the other side
Right.
and try to give in it. And the thing is, I really try to like understand both sides of the story, but it's almost like there's a most of the people I talk to that are on the other side, they don't want to compromise at all. Like there's no give. And
Right.
they're just like, do not tell me that stuff. And it's like they refuse to again, it's like they just refuse to take the pill.
Right.
And they don't want to. It's almost like they just feel like if they do it, there's no going back, and then they're going to lose all their friends, they're going to lose their life, everything they've known, and they're going to be eating, a soup. So I don't know what they're going to do, but they it's just crazy. Alexander says exactly. It's like the world simulation is opposite. It is so nuts.
Now, do you
So
think that the Mandela effect kind of plays into all of that too?
it's possible. I mean, think about like if this was a Matrix, what if they went and did firmware upgrades? you know, and like firmware upgrades were the way that we thought we experienced something, but it was just like this firmware upgrade that kind of changed some things,
Mm-hmm.
some very minor details on accident, and all of a sudden we're like, we still have some of that old programming bits and pieces in us, and we're like, wait a minute, the it wasn't the Bernstein Bears, it was the Berenstein Bears or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever some of the Mandela effect stuff is. So yeah, you bring up a good point. That could be part of what we experience in the Matrix.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so many things that can point to that. And I wouldn't have thought that like years ago, but now it's like everything's so wonky. How could you not at least consider that to be something that's going on?
Yeah, and it's almost like the computers behind the AI behind everything was like, oh God, we thought we were giving people what they wanted. Turns out that's a very small minority of people, and a lot of people are upset that everything's getting out of skew. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Do this. Try to course correct, and they just keep over course correcting, and we're just swerving out of control. I don't know. It's weird. It
It is
really.
weird. And then, like, how would we handle it if it comes out that that is the case? Like, how do you move forward with life? I don't know. That would be
I
crazy.
I don't know. I just I don't know. I guess it would depend if you got to see if you got to literally come out of a matrix and literally into some other world. What would that be? Would it be post-apocalyptic like in the movie, or would it just be, or would we just be in a farm? I mean, I would imagine like it would be very similar to the Matrix, where we would have to be some kind of farmed creature, probably for energy, because as of right now, AI doesn't have a way of problem solving, self sustaining energy. So
Right.
it would have to get to a certain point with AI to where it can start thinking and making actual decisions and inventions, and then start realizing, hey, we can use harvest the human bodies for energy, blah blah blah, and we can keep them in this like VR, virtual reality type situation. But I would think us physically being in that situation for so many years, we probably could not physically wake up from that coma. I think that would be the
Yeah,
problem,
I
you
think so
know.
too.
And
And I
we
don't know how I feel about the whole AI thing, anyways. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably a whole nother subject.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm just like, I don't know about that.
all right, but I think we'll move on to the next segment. And so this one here, this segment is going to be psychic predicts alien contact by 2028. So psychic Athos Salom, I'm probably murdering your name. It was Gyarmathy. I got that right for Tammy's last name. So known as the living Nostradamus. So Athos Salam is known as the living Nostradamus, predicts that humanity will make contact with extraterrestrial life by 2028, according to a recent article by The Mirror. Oh man, we know
Mhm.
how trusted The Mirror is. Okay, Salom, who has accurately predicted events such as the death of Queen Elizabeth II and Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, claims his aliens prediction is already being supported by scientific discoveries. Last month, Salom stated that, quote, governments and religious bodies will need to grapple with the moral implications, unquote, of discovering alien life forms between 2026 and 2028. He believes NASA and the European Space Agency will identify complex life forms on Jupiter's moons, Europa, within this time frame. The year 2028 will mark the recognition by people of the existence among them of inhabitants of other planets, Salom said. Recent scientific findings support these predictions. According to the Mirror story, researchers discovered potato like lumps on the Pacific ocean seafloor that produce oxygen without light, challenging current understanding of how life emerged on Earth. Salome commented that these findings should push governments and religious institutions to think their views on life and humanity's place in the universe. My predictions about the discovery of extraterrestrial life are being confirmed as new scientific discoveries challenge our understanding of biology and the origins of life, he asserted. So that was interesting. I guess I'll just start by saying that whoever this quote unquote psychic is, again, I'm not a huge fan of psychics in a way. I know I've been involved in the paranormal. I have friends that are psychics and stuff. Like, I'm just not a huge believer too much. I'm always been a little bit skeptical on psychics. A lot of times, especially nowadays on some of the internet stuff, you got guys that'll make like 100 predictions, and then when they get close to the right one, they start deleting ones, and then eventually they're like, "You see, I said this years ago, or whatever. I said this a long time ago." And then, meanwhile, all the other predictions that they said were all deleted or destroyed. So, I mean,
But what this person is saying in their article, I mean, this has already been said for how long? You know what I mean? Like, the government pretty much already said there's
right.
aliens. So I don't really understand the prediction, like that we're gonna have actual proof of these beings on different um planets. Is that like physical visual proof? Is that what they mean by that?
Well, I think like the potato lumps that they were talking about on the thing that was producing oxygen without light. I think that was like them saying, "Hey, like in other planets, they could be producing oxygen under these depths of because we do know that there's potential oceans
Mm-hmm.
on other planets and moons, and of course, Europa has been always a subject of that, especially since the Stanley Kubrick movies, 2001 and 2010. So there's always going to be those fascinations with Europa as well. But I think that's kind of what they were talking about in that
Mm-hmm.
in the article. And but I think yeah, you're right in the sense that this is something that it's almost a little bit of an easy layup. Like if you're a psychic, you can just kind of pick like
Right.
right, but like well, but because here's the thing, like the government has said UFOs, but they still never pressed and there's still nothing hard evidence.
About aliens themselves.
Right. And
Yeah.
I do want to touch on what you were talking about earlier, which is potential for is it demons or what are we really looking at when we see these UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to touch on that here in a second. So I think again, this guy is pretty much stating a little bit of the obvious stuff, in my opinion.
Oh, I think so too. Like,
So
duh. I mean, we're obviously gonna figure that out sooner than or later.
so let's look at let's turn to the topic of UFOs themselves then, and maybe some of your personal theories and stuff like that. Like, do you first of all, I guess I would say is what do you think about 2028 and actually making alien contact, like actually communicating with an alien that might be on like a video or YouTube that's verified.
I don't know. The way that things are going in this world right now, I think it might be before then. But I don't know. Anything's possible, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, and then you were mentioning something about the demons earlier.
Mm.
Like, so what are your thoughts? Do you think that aliens or that these UFOs, do you think that they're actually from another planet, or do you think this could be something spiritual?
I mean, it possibly could be spiritual. This is something I've talked to a couple other people about. There's some similarities between demonic stuff and aliens. I did work a case one time. The lady thought she was having aliens coming to her, um, but a lot of the things that she was saying was happening sounded very demonic in nature as well. So there might be some type of connection there. Maybe not they may not be demons themselves, but maybe there's some type of connections between the demonic and aliens. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wayne
Like The
Monroe,
Fourth Kind. Have you seen that movie, The Fourth Kind,
I think so.
where the aliens were coming to her, and like that movie, like when I was watching it, like yes, it was an alien movie, but it felt very demonic to me.
Right. Well, and you might be right, and you probably would have more of a beat on that than most people. So,
Yeah.
uh, and Wayne Monroe said that a spiritual person to me is, or as a spiritual person to me, it appears to be a spiritual war that is going on. It's pretty scary to think about. Really, it's like it's angels and demons battling. And I think Wayne
Oh,
was mostly
absolutely.
talking about when we were talking about in the previous, like maybe reality as well. But I think this also could apply. And Alexander said, well, I guess was laughing when I said, that's verified on YouTube. But so I I've entertained this thought because I do believe in supernatural. I'm very down to earth when it comes to my beliefs. I don't feel like I'm extreme.
Right.
Um, I've always looked for the truth in the middle, and although although I may not be out like banging the Bible around and stuff, but I am very much a fan. I've read the Bible. I've it, especially when I went back and read the Bible again, like other times as an adult, like later on as a paranormal investigator. And I found it super fascinating in the Old Testament of how much they talked about portals and things that looked like UFOs and aliens and stuff. It's really, really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. And where I'm going with this is that this was, you got to think about the Bible, you got to think about the Book of Enoch, pretty much a lot of your stuff from the Dead Sea Scrolls. These were ancient writings that they held dearly and felt that they were very factual,
Mm-hmm.
and that so they wanted to preserve these, these basically like these library type monks, and they preserved all this stuff in these Dead Sea Scrolls. So these were some super super important documents, and a lot of them talk about these things. And one of the main stories that was the Book of Enoch that got into the fallen angels.
Mm-hmm.
And it also fills in the blanks in the Bible when you get into Genesis and talking about the fallen angels and stuff. The Book of Enoch was supposed to be in the Bible.
Right.
In fact, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, they still have the Book of Enoch in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And but it goes into the fallen angels and the whole story about that. Now, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it's amazing. But ultimately, these fallen angels, they give they mate with the Earth women, and there's all these cryptids. We're talking, all the stuff you read about in like Greek mythology, your minotaurs and your centaurs, and like all these hybrid creatures, giants. There was these big wars, and of course there was a big flood.
Mm-hmm.
God said, "Hey, we gotta purge all this craziness from these fallen angels, and we gotta purge all this bad blood out there." So I don't know. Like when you see these fallen angels, we hear stories about even Bigfoots and these dogmen and Mothmen and stuff. I still can believe that we have this leftover supernatural beings. So maybe they're fallen angels, maybe they're current angels or demons, possibly. I'm not too convinced they're demons, but they do seem to be some type of angels or whatnot. But they really could fall into a more of a biblical theory.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty wild. So I mean, I think Wayne brings up that point when he's talking about being a spiritual person and things about angels and demons battling. I think there's multiple things going on. I do believe that because we have free will on Earth, we do some pretty bad things, and I think that the humans are battling, and I think there's a spiritual battle also going on in at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. I've been talking about that for years, and it's just it's every day it's like more obvious to me. And I feel like if there was ever a veil, it's gone at this point. I That's how I feel, at least. Like things are just so bad around us, and there's no way that that is just because man is evil. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's just something bigger.
Yeah,
And
I
when
mean,
you think about demons and people, people want to tie demons to Christianity, and the fact is that it dates back way further than that. And every culture and religion like have their own versions of demons, and so I feel like this evil's been here for way longer than the Bible.
well, and regardless, no matter how you want to approach it on a Christianity, non-Christianity, and you're right. There's been in all cultures, um, the good and evil,
Hmm.
and I think that there had to be that balance when the universe was created. And I believe it. I do believe in God because I've been in Ron and paranormal, and I think that when you believe in something beyond normal life, when you believe in paranormal, you have to believe in some kind of God usually. Um,
Oh
but
yeah, I
I
agree.
believe in God, period. But like, I think that you have to have both. If you didn't have bad, you wouldn't know what good was.
Exactly,
It's the
exactly.
vice
So
versa.
when people are like, "There's no such thing as demons," it's like, okay, just turn on the TV. That's kind of
Right,
rude right
right.
there, but that's
Turn
fine. You
on the
can believe
TV.
that. Live in your little bubble. But
Yeah.
um, no,
Yeah,
I mean,
watch mainstream media. There you go. You just pick one. Pick one. Pick any of
right?
them. Pick any of them. You'll see demons. All right. But no, I get it. Like you'll see evil. And Scott Schuma says every religion has a form of an exorcism.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, when you go back to Mesopotamia days, and you'll always see the talk of demons and evil spirits, and
And
you're
weren't
always going
like
to
even in
go.
the pyramids, they were drawn on their weren't they? The pictures of like demons and stuff like that, even like way back then.
Well, and what you really find in the hieroglyphs is a lot of the hybrid creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and again, this is why, again, whether people want to believe in the fallen angel story or whatnot, all of there's a ton of religions that were depicting hybrid creatures. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
want to believe they're aliens or whether you want to believe maybe those hybrid creatures are a form of an evil spirit, but in any case, most of what you find in those terms were um, hybrid creatures and when they were
Mm-hmm.
depicted. Now there is an ancient tablet. It doesn't date back as it is one of the oldest tablets, and I want to say 1500 BC.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a cuneiform that does talk about demons.
Right.
And I want to say Babylonian maybe.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Um, but again, one can argue whether that comes before the Bible or not. That to me, that doesn't matter. Like we're talking about the overall history of humankind. Like as far as just when people are talking about this stuff, whether it's talking about it in the Bible or in other forms, cuneiforms, uh, hieroglyphics, any of that stuff. Seeing a glimpse, those are all images and stories back into a time where we weren't around.
Right.
So it's
I think
amazing.
like the big problem of it though, like when you want to talk about like demons and in respect to the paranormal world or community, like I think so many people say that they don't believe because they don't believe in God. So they automatically say they go together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to be able to look at everything as a whole.
Hmm.
And if you can look at everything and you say, you know what, I think the world is a certain way, and maybe the Bible is just a good book. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something. Maybe you do agree with it. Maybe you agree with that and other things. You can
Hmm.
agree with different things. Um, but regardless, people should always try to look at everything. Anyways, you should always
Right.
try to look at, and that's that's the argument I get into sometimes when I do talk to certain people that only want to say, look, the Bible is as far as I go, and I'm not going to read the book of Enoch. I'm not going to read the book of Jonas. I'm not going to read some of these other ancient texts that, either expand upon those things or back those things up. And then they get very closed minded and they get very defensive.
Mhm.
And it's like, why would you, like, I get it. Like, I understand you have your faith and you have your belief, but you should also be open-minded enough to learn all of these stories, because it may even for me, learning all these things actually increased my faith in God. I
Exactly.
When I wrote my book, I I got it brought me closer to God, because I had to research and read other things other than just the Bible, and I had to read other ancient scriptures, and even passages from like the Jewish Bible and all these things. Like,
Right.
you really have to expand your mind and look at and try to fill in the blanks with all of those things that were happening at those time frames.
Exactly. I feel like people who are so close-minded to stuff like that really don't belong in the paranormal, because if you're not willing to accept other things than your own beliefs, then why are you even the paranormal is the unknown, right? So I mean,
Right.
it's all theory at the end of the day.
Right.
And
And that's the other thing that bugs me too, is when people start to get like, this is exact way that paranormal is and whatever. It's like, no, you don't know that. Like, we all have.
Mhm.
And look, I can just say this. I think people that's been doing it for years, you tend to kind of see the same things over and over. You see patterns and you kind of see where the truth lies in the middle. That's why I have a certain middle of the road belief, because a lot of the things I believe and talk about, these are things that are pretty base. They're things that I've witnessed over the years. They're the same things over and over and over. So you see patterns. If you
Right.
start to get into some really weird left wing or right wing paranormal talk, not political. If you get to the extreme sides of things, then you don't see those things. It's like, and it's, you kind of, I don't discount anything, but I also
No.
look at what do I experience every time I go and investigate what is the patterns, what does seem to be the things like that.
But for me, it's like not every situation's the same. Like
Sure.
I have an attachment, somebody else had an attachment, they were able to control it or get rid of it or whatever. And then, they'll say, "Well, this is what worked for me, this is what's going to work for you." Well, no, because not every situation's the same. My attachment's not what your attachment was. So, I don't know, I feel like people are just so close-minded. So
Right.
close-minded in the paranormal
Even after
space.
learning that there was UFOs out there from the government.
I
Right?
don't know, I just think we have to be open. Like, I've worked so many residential cases, and I've helped clients that came from different cultural beliefs or religious beliefs, and I had to learn more about their religion and beliefs to be able to help them.
Yeah.
And that's really important, and I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to do stuff like that.
That's true. Well, Tammy, it was great talking with you. I want you to stick around for a few more minutes as well. Guys, we're going to wrap everything up, but we're going to spend about the next 5 minutes. If anybody in chat has any questions for myself or Tammy, guys, go ahead and get some questions in the chat. I just wanted to end that last segment. And, but guys, if you want to go back and watch any of those previous 3 segments, the one about Tammy herself and her situation, and of course, reality being a simulation, and of course, aliens, I'm going to have those up individually throughout the week. On this YouTube channel, on the Everything Paranormal Show YouTube channel, but that's where you guys can catch me every Thursday night. I also have a book on Amazon. It's international selling. It's called My Paranormal: A Guide to the Spirit Realms, where I do talk about all my beliefs and the big picture and all that good stuff, life after death, reincarnation, all those things. I talk about that in my book. I've got a lot of things coming on. I have a show on Paraflix. It's an original series called TEPS Investigates. It airs pretty much throughout the year. You can, if you get Paraflix, use code TEPS25 and you'll get a bunch off for the year. And but that show's on there. You can see the first season, and we're filming second season right now. In fact, we're getting ready to go film this weekend for I don't know, second or third episode. We got a bunch filming that we're doing right now, all the way to the end of September. And we got October, well, and even on October. In October, we got a lot of stuff. We just got a lot going on. This is that time of year. So guys, and of course, make sure you catch Tammy on her TikTok, especially because that's where you can find her nowadays at Haunted123. And so, anyways, let's see. Do we got any last minute comments, questions? Terry Lynn, good job, Josh. Thank you. Scott says people have mixed the paranormal and social media, and that has made the focus of the paranormal blurry.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
God, so true.
that's true. And that's why, like, for me, one of my personal missions, one of the reasons why I don't, as long as I've been in the industry and doing this stuff, I probably could literally go and get like 2 million followers, but I'd have to fake things like some of these other guys. One of my stipulations I've always did is no matter whether I'm doing a show, like a TV show, um, YouTube investigation, whatever it is, I just won't fake paranormal. I just won't. I
Oh my
won't
gosh,
fake
no,
it.
I've the first team I was involved with, they wanted a show, and so we did like an online show thing, and then they started faking things, and I was like, oh hell no, that's not why I'm about this. I will not. I don't at all like deal with that. And like a lot of people, because I used to go live on TikTok a lot, and things would happen, but there's no jump scares. There's nothing like flying out from the corner where you couldn't see where it was coming from. I mean, you don't need to do that if it's real.
Well, and Wayne brings up a really good question, and this will go right into what you're talking about. Wayne says, Tammy, has this attachment had any effect on private investigations that you have done to other people in their homes? Meaning, does it follow you to these locations and interfere with those?
Yes. So I don't know so much about like private, like residential cases, but I do know that when I have worked residential cases, it has amped up the activity I experience. So that's kind of the opposite. But when I do go and just like investigate haunted locations, it's really hard sometimes to tell like what we're dealing with, if it's something in that location or if it's my attachment, because it does follow me everywhere. So we can go to locations that many people say they don't have any activity, and we get a crap ton of things. So it's hard. Could it be my attachment? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Tammy.
It's
All
just
the
me.
meters, everything just keeps lighting up for her. Like it's like,
Well,
well,
yeah. I mean, I threw a paranormal event back in California, and I had Rex Williams was there, and Dalen Spratt, and a couple other people, and we were down in like this basement area, and there was this freestanding door with a cross hanging on it, and then someone had a Ouija board on the table. And so I said, "Oh, let's play the Ouija board." And I put my hand on the planchette, and the cross flew off the door and across the room.
I guess the game's over now.
Yeah. So I mean, and Rex Williams, he's been all over the world, and he's like, "That's probably the creepiest thing I've ever experienced." And most people
Nice.
there just kind of thought, "Well, that's Tammy's thing." It's probably not the location itself, because things tend to fly off walls around me all the time. But so yeah, I think that it can interfere in other investigations for sure.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions I see. And guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember, like, share, subscribe. You guys know the game. But I will be here every Thursday night live at 9 p.m. Eastern, except October, because I'm going to be hosting some events. So we're going to shift the night for just October. But we will be doing a live podcast. We'll have a new special guest next week. Well, we'll be doing this again. Tammy, thank you so much for showing up. You're welcome to come back on in the future again. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself, and we'll have some additional topics next time if you decide to come back on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. All right, guys, we will see you in the next video, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.